In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we have a whole lot of Chicago Bears talk that we want to get to. We'll probably talk some baseball and some basketball, some hockey, but really, there's going to be a lot of angry football talk. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Season's going on right now, so head on over to icehogs.com. Yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Day to process. How you feeling?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to feel on what we should do to go forward. I mean, there are certain things I think that we should be doing, but every year, we've been in the playoffs twice since 2011. It's 2024. We haven't won a playoff game since January 2011 against a sub 500 Seahawks team. And we knew going into the season that we weren't built to win a Super Bowl. But here we are, end of the year. Your rivals have owned you and are laughing at you, and you are the nail to the hammer yet again. You don't look close to what your rivals are doing. You were outcoached. You were outmuscled. You were outplayed in pretty much every way possible yet again. And the Packers have a great coach who's going to be there for a long time, have a young roster, have a lot of draft picks. And how do we overcome this? I mean, we're sitting here with a Bears team that, okay, they went from 3 wins to 7 wins. Yeah, on paper, that's an improvement, but you lost 3 historic games. You got owned by your rivals twice. Again, goes for pretty much every year. And we don't know who our quarterback's going to be. We don't know who our coach is going to be right now. As of right now, we're recording. Maybe by the time you're listening to this, something has happened or something has not. But I don't know. And how many coaching regimes and quarterbacks and false hope can we get? I mean, listen, they weren't making the playoffs no matter what in the final week of the season. But if you could have said, you know what, we can go into Green Bay and spoil their party, or at least battle them to the very end, because let's be real. 17-9, that score was closer than the game actually was, right?
Absolutely.
You were severely outplayed, right?
Yeah.
We're not even close to them yet. Okay. You had a signature win against the Lions. Great. Justin Fields did some pretty good things against a pretty good Atlanta defense. Okay. Well, you know what? Their quarterback is Tyler Heineke. He stinks. You beat the Cardinals. They stink. You beat the Commanders. They stink. You beat the Raiders when they were under Josh McDaniels with Brian Hoyer as their quarterback. You could have won that with the preseason roster. Are we going to continue to settle for mediocrity? Because that's what I'm afraid of. And my hope, my question, has this team, has this organization truly evolved? Has the hiring of Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles truly brought us into the future or is it going to be triumphed by the ding dong McCaskies and their old mom and pop style way of running things? Right now, before we have any answers, I don't know. I don't know.
I want to start off by saying, listen to what the players are saying, either directly or read between the lines. They think the coaching stinks.
Remember when Justin Fields made the comment in preseason that he had to retract?
Yeah, well, preseason, they said it the regular season he had to. But you have multiple players, not just Getsy, but also Eberflus. Whenever the Bears blow a lead with that defense, if you notice, the players are pissed, not at themselves. I mean, to some degree themselves, but they're pissed because the play calling is very soft. A lot of soft coverages. They want to attack. Look at the Green Bay game. You have them pinned at the 2-yard line. What do? You play soft coverage, and they just pick you apart. And I'm not ready to concede that Jordan Love is some great quarterback, because he has laid so many stinky eggs this year. He is the product of a really good system and a good play calling coach. You cannot tell me that if you switched quarterbacks on these teams, that Justin Fields wouldn't be elite and Jordan Love would be a dirt sandwich. The fact that these coaches are so passive, they don't learn from their mistakes, they don't own up to anything. They still have yet to talk about anything that they've done wrong. This is a losing team. They won 3 games last year, and they won 7 games this year. They've won 10 games in 2 years, and not once have you heard the coaching staff go, we need to be better. Matt Nagy sucked, but he talked about why he needed to be better. This coaching staff has no accountability. They need to be gone. Period.
Do you remember the comments made after the Browns game alluding to, weren't they dropping Jones in coverage?
Yeah.
Do you remember that play that basically won the game for the Browns?
Yep. And the players hate that. They do it. They hate it. And you can't.
You're right.
You can't. You cannot bring this coaching staff back. If you do, that either means that our GM and president of football operations are okay with being sub-mediocre. Not just mediocre, sub-mediocre, cannot compete with the adult teams in this league, or stupid McCaskey can't get out of the way. There's no way a legitimate, well-run team is bringing back this coaching staff.
Teams have already made their firings. Not saying that it won't happen for the Bears, but
it has not yet. The Panthers and the Raiders did it midseason.
Mm-hmm.
Washington has done it. The Jacksonville Jaguars have released their whole defensive squad. The Giants defensive coordinator resigned / got fired. And it sounds like the Patriots are going to make a change. And the Bears are just going to sit there and have done nothing. And I granted there's still time, but they have not done anything yet. And you see is 2 teams this year were really struggling offensively, fired their offensive coordinator during the season, and things got better. And that would be the Steelers and the Bills. One is one of the best run franchises in the NFL, and the other one is a Super Bowl contender. But you have the Bears, we're just going to stick with Luke Getsy. He's so stubborn in what he did, and it drives me nuts, and I really want to run to the score and throw everybody in a hammerlock, because everything is about Fields, because that's their knee-jerk reaction. Oh, they lost a game. Fields. Oh, lost a game. Fields. is, did you watch the play calling? What was Justin Fields in his 15 passes supposed to do? I mean, all these routes were 10-plus-yard routes before a receiver turned his head. There were guys, they were running bunch formations into a zone. Like, what are they doing? There was only one hot route. They only rolled Justin Fields out like once?
Their refusal to roll him out is mind-blowing. And listen, you don't have to do it every time. If you're worried about him getting killed, you don't have to do it crazy often, but you know that's a strength of his, and they just refuse to do it.
If they don't care about him getting hurt because they keep running that designed run. And that's when he's getting hit.
Right.
And the fact that Matt Eberflus is not out there wringing refs' necks should have been a reason to fire him. Do you know how many late hit penalties that the quarterback that by far and away leads the NFL in rushing? Do you know how many late hit penalties he's gotten this year?
Zero.
Zero.
That's incredible.
Zero. He got hit so hard late after he was in the middle of the slide. And you have Dean Blandino, who, if I ever see him, I'm punching him in his stupid face too. Is Dean Blandino is like, well, I mean, he's just started his slide. No, the rule is when you give yourself up, you cannot be hit.
Any other quarterback is getting that call.
Every quarterback is getting that call except Justin Fields. I don't care if they didn't hit him in the head. They hit him after he was already in his slide and hit him so hard that his head ricocheted off the ground. You can't tell me the league is okay or wants to be protective of these players and allow that to happen. And the fact that Matt Eberflus is not out there, Coach Sean would have been out there throwing punches at players, at opposing fans, at the refs. Roger Goodell better watch his ass. I'm throwing haymakers, protecting my quarterback.
And you know, here are 2 points I want to make about that. One, as much as we do shit on Matt Nagy, I bet he would not have just sat there.
No, he would not have. And I don't want to sound like, oh, Matt, we miss him. No, but there's sometimes you can recognize when somebody that was bad at their job did something right.
Right, exactly. Here's the other thing, and this was brought up on Cap and J Hood this morning. I was listening on my car ride in, and they made a really good comparison. The other night, the star of Chicago, young Connor Bedard, had his jaw broken, fractured, in that game against the Devils. What happened the very next shift? Nick Foligno dropped the gloves.
Yep.
That team stood up for their guy right away. And you listen, we hear how much the team loves Justin Fields. But when that happens, where's the passion and the fire? I know it sounds like a meatball old school thing to say, but truly, you're in the last game of the season.
Coach Sean would have sent Kari Blassingame out to lay out Simone Biles to send a message.
Yeah, I mean, and again, would it have done any good for you in the win column? No, but to let that happen, just weak.
And not only was it weak, did you hear his comments, Matt Eberflus's comments about it after the game?
No, I didn't.
He commended the NFL on their process.
What? Oh, jeez. It's
mind-boggling. So you have a weak, ineffective coaching staff that has not been fired yet. They have not been fired. And players notice that. The players notice that.
And, you use the word weak. How about Luke Getsy taking the ball completely out of his QB's hands and playing conservative when I don't. It's the second pressure is applied, they get scared, and they play scared against Green Bay from start to finish.
Yep.
It's no wonder why the Bears lose to them every year. They're outcoached and outmanned, and Green Bay's got the guts, and the Bears never do. The marketing team has plenty of guts posting all the hokey rah-rah shit we have to hear every year. But the actual coaching staff doesn't have those cojones.
It's mind-boggling. And I get it. Is the you can run on Green Bay, but you know what? They ran almost exclusively out of the shotgun.
Right.
You're the Chicago Bears playing in January in Lambeau Field. Run it. You've got a fullback. Run it from the eye.
I don't get it. And what was the play where Fields got sacked? Who do they have in their blocking that just was a turnstile on the one play?
Our punt returner.
Yeah.
We had a 175-pound wide receiver blocking one of the elite defensive linemen in the NFL.
What are you thinking?
And it goes back to my point is, not everything that Luke Getsy does is dumb, but the personnel, when it's not dumb, half the time the personnel that he puts in is dumb. And that's dumb. If you're at least going to have a receiver block, why Tanyan or at least Equinemius St. Brown?
Who's good at blocking? You know who's not good at blocking? Darnell Mooney. Remember when Darnell Mooney was there in that crucial block that ended up being a loss?
Yeah. I understand it. And I don't understand what this evaluation is, because they go talk to the players. The players have got to be like, yeah, this coaching staff sucks monkey butt. And then they're like, you know what? We watched the film. And the emphasis was the final game of the season is maybe because of recency bias. You're like, oh, well, they're playing better and blah, 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 blah. And then you watch that last game, and I don't know if you're watching the national championship game. I'm a big Michigan guy, and I was hopeful that the Michigan Wolverines would be able to establish a run, and the fact that they have like 2 40+ yard touchdown runs is amazing, because if this is how the game is going to go, Washington,
the clock.
Yeah, Washington's in trouble. But it's just mind-boggling. Is what is the evaluation process? Like, you saw the whole body of work, and you had it emphasized with the last game. You had the opportunity to go, you know what? We really pooped the bed that first game of the season. We were not prepared as a team. We were not prepared to play this opponent. And we are going to change things. And they didn't. They didn't change anything. Didn't change anything.
No. And let's be real. The biggest difference in the game outside coaching was you lost that trench battle badly on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely you did. And the thing is if you lose to the Green Bay Packers because their players are better, like, you know what, couldn't stop the run because their offensive line, if you lose because they are able to pick up 5 yards of carry, but you're making your tackles and they're not breaking tackles, and you're competitive on things, but they're just, you could tell when you're just outclassed. I get it. That sucks, and I don't want to see it, but I get it, because we are in a rebuild. Last year was the teardown year. This is the first year of us building up. So I get it if they outplay you, but they outcoached you and outplayed you. And that can't happen. It can't happen.
No, not to the way it was. And I mean, there's a ceiling, I think, with this current regime. And the ceiling is kind of where it is right now. Because listen, you could have won 3 more games, and you lost them in historic fashion. And you were a few first downs away from having a few more games. But you know what? Good, better teams, better regimes don't lose those games. They at least don't lose all 3. Maybe you lose 1 because that's the NFL and that happens, but to lose that 3 times, you shouldn't sell your ceiling short. And I'm going to ask the question that other people have been asking on the radio, in media, and these are legitimate questions from like 6-7 to the score, is what really is the standard here? Is our standard continuing to be, well, we compete, we play tough, blah, blah, blah. But the standard should be win, you idiots. Win. I don't care about Ditka and 85 and tradition and this and that. I don't care about this team's identity over the past 100 years in George Halas. Just be winners.
Let me ask you
win
this.
games.
What was the number one thing going into the season that as an organization was the number one exclamation point thing you had to do as an organization this season?
Evaluate the quarterback.
Evaluate the quarterback. What did they do to evaluate this quarterback? Well, we evaluated him behind a makeshift offensive line that was hurt most of the season and putting a round peg in a square hole. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand. That was your job. That's what you were supposed to do, and you didn't do it. He told you what was wrong, and instead of listening to him, you chastise him publicly. You never learned. You were like so stubborn in what you do and how you do it. You did not take into account that that was not your job. Your job was to develop this quarterback and see what you had. And we don't know still. I still believe Justin Fields is a dude. I don't know what his ceiling is, but I still think he's a top 12, 10, 12 quarterback in this league. And you can win with way worse quarterbacks, but you need to build around him. If you don't do what your quarterback does best, what's the point? It's the same thing. Is if I had Tom Brady and I'm not gonna try to run an option offense because that would be stupid. Be like, you know what? This Tom Brady guy stinks. He can't run an option worth the save. I run a wishbone offense, and it has been successful in this NFL, and he's not good. Like what? Oh my God.
What?
Michigan with another 40+ yard run.
Oh, geez. So this could be a blowout.
That's what it's seeming like. Hopefully, I'm a Michigan guy. I want this to be undisputed. But if you can't, there's no player in the NFL that is system proof. There are players that will do a quarterback. There's just not a perfect quarterback for every system out there. You have to build. And if you can't come in here, even after that first season, if you can't go that whole entire off season, essentially the second week of January all the way through July, if you can't sit down and design play for your quarterback to be successful, you're terrible at your job. And Luke Getsy is terrible. You heard them on the broadcast be like, I don't know what he's doing. And you have Greg Gabriel on Twitter going, this guy's a disaster. Brian Baldinger was breaking it down, and he's like, I don't know what this guy's doing. And you're showing plays like they're breaking it down. Like, look at this. What is he doing? What is he trying to accomplish? You have people with all 22 going, there's literally a guy with his arms draped around Justin Fields, and you're like, well, he's not getting the ball fast enough. And they 22, not a single wide receiver has finished running his route and turned. Who's he throwing it to? Like, I don't understand. Like, I cannot begin to start an indictment on the quarterback until you address the play caller and the offensive scheme that you're running. Like they
I mean,
don't get open. It's they don't know how to run plays properly. Like it's everything is a disaster.
I mean, the coaching is absolutely a disaster. It truly is. You know, I don't I don't dislike Justin Fields. I do think though there are times when he himself just flat out hasn't been good enough. But I do think that he has been hampered by this team. And I think if you do put him in an elite system with an elite team around him, he could succeed. I do believe that because I think a lot of the kinks that he does have that are on him, they could maybe be worked out with a better coaching staff.
Yeah, you've worked those in. Any kinks, you've worked them in, and it's going to be harder to do. And I, I, I would love. I'm at the point now is I've switched my mind a lot over the past few weeks of what I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm I'm terrified of drafting a quarterback. I'm going to be honest. I'm terrified
Oh,
because
in this draft, I don't think there's any. I mean, Caleb Williams might have a high ceiling, but I think a possibly low floor.
yeah, I watch him and you watch him against tough defenses and you watch him without elite wide receivers and he doesn't look good. And uh he against teams that were bad defenses or bad teams, he's lighting it up. But that's what you're supposed to do when you're playing for a big time program. I'm not sold on him. Um, I like every quarterback in here. I'm a big Michigan guy, and I don't totally believe in JJ McCarthy.
Oh, that's not an experiment I'd want to make.
I mean, I believe in him way more than coming out. And I'm going to be honest, I watch these quarterbacks, and I've been wrong on guys. I don't think there's been a quarterback where I've watched their tape and been like, nope, he's not a dude, and had them be successful since Ryan Leaf. So it's been a long time. It's been 20 years.
And that was a
And
historical bust.
yes. And that guy, and I think that was, and you can't scout that. He had all the talent. He wasn't a hard worker and he had a bad attitude.
Right.
And but anyway, I watched Josh Rosen go in the first round, and I remember I pulled up notes about it, and I was just like, I can't see what an NFL scout sees in this guy. I've watched every single snap of his last 2 years, and I can't see where they're coming from. For Patrick Mahomes, I put this guy has all the talent in the world. My concern is that he's uh, he's going to be too much like Brett Favre and be a gunslinger, and I'm concerned about the being somewhat of a system quarterback. But if you put him in the right system, I think this guy could be really good. And um, I'm pretty good at this, and I don't have a sense of. I just have to sit down with these quarterbacks, but I don't have a sense of. There's no elite prospect for me. I see flaws with Caleb Williams that if he had come out last year, I don't think I would have seen because he had good wide receiver core last year. Michael Penix at times looks really good, but he's also playing in a spread offense with three wide receivers that are going to get drafted in the NFL high, and one probably in the top 10 or 15. And he's got injury concerns. And I go, okay. And you've got the kid from LSU. You're like, okay, well, he couldn't win the big game. And there's a lot of flaws in these guys. And you've got a guy who's played big time college football and he's made these big plays, and he's the best athlete we've ever seen at the quarterback position in 20 years. Like and we've got an MVP who plays like this. It's like if you can't make this guy work, what makes you think that you can make a draft pick work? What makes you think you're good enough to evaluate when
You
in this
better have the right
history?
coaching.
Yeah, and if you think you're gonna have Matt Eberflus and Luke Getzey, and you're gonna get rid of Fields and bring in somebody, and it's gonna be successful,
You
you're
can't
gonna
do
be
that.
you are going to crash and burn, and that will be Ryan Poles' job. It's the safest thing you can do if you're Ryan Poles is you coach or general managers. The two things that get them fired are blowing it with the quarterback and blowing it with head coaching picks. And I think he hasn't picked a quarterback yet. And I don't think he had control over. There's reports now that McCaskey picked Eberflus, and he was kind of saddled with him. So you haven't really picked a coach. And your job security. Are you gonna blow both those barrels in your third season? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I really think you trade that, get a haul, bring in some elite weapons, fix that offensive line. I was at the point where I was like, I don't know if you can, if you upgrade over Braxton Jones, if you've got one of those stud left tackles there, go for it. Uh, Kick Braxton Jones inside if you need to. It's this offensive line needs to be so much better.
Especially at center. I mean, the center was brutal.
Yeah, no matter who they put in at center. And the one guy I was curious to actually see is they put him on the practice squad and he got taken by another team. So
yeah. And here's one thing I really want to make clear about Caleb Williams is I'm not declaring him a bust by any means right now. I'm just saying that for the ones who think Caleb Williams, who are treating him like the savior already, have you not learned your lesson here? I mean, he hasn't played a single snap in the NFL. Now, listen, if the Bears get a new coaching staff and Caleb Williams is the choice, I will be behind and support and hope that he does great because that's what we need. But I'm just saying, like, oh, we got to get rid of Fields. Caleb Williams is going to save us. If he does, he does. But there's no guarantee at all behind that. There are things about Caleb Williams that makes me nervous. You alluded to it, playing the elite defenses, and
watch him run around with that ball in one hand.
Yeah, so I mean, there are things that make you nervous. Maybe he goes to the NFL and he's great. We don't know. And if he goes to the Bears, I hope he's great. But I'm just saying that there's no easy answer here because there's no guarantee. Even if you get a great coaching staff for Justin Fields, I think Justin Fields could put up some solid numbers. But frankly, there are some things that Justin Fields needs to be better at doing. Pure and simple. I mean, I can't take all the blame away from Fields, but I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Fields is bum, he's an idiot, he sucks, blah, blah, blah. No, not at all. But I mean, there are some times when there are shortcomings where I'm like, you know what? That's just on him. There's just been a lot of meh in this whole era, and some of it's on the coaching, some of it's on the team, some of it's on him.
I just watched Jordan Love be able to sit in a clean pocket and throw to a wide open receiver 30 yards down the field who has room to run, and there's nobody, and not just one wide receiver,
nobody
there's
around
two. Him. And you're like, man, I would love to see Justin Fields be able to do that. And because he doesn't even get a clean pocket, he doesn't get an open wide receiver. Like I know. I just get frustrated because I don't have what I need to fully evaluate Justin Fields because the systems they put him in with Nagy, and Nagy didn't want him, and you saw what happened.
Just like John Fox didn't want Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, and then you bring in a coaching staff that doesn't want. They want to force him to do things that without the tools to do it. You want him to force him to do something that's not his comfort zone, and without the tools. And I'm just gonna say this: if they bring, I don't want it, but if they bring back Matt Eberflus, I'm gonna swallow it, and I'm just gonna be like, okay. And I love Justin Fields, and I hope he's back. But if he's not, if they bring in a draft pick, I'm not buying a jersey, but I'm going to cheer for them. The one situation where I'm just gonna walk away and turn my attention to college football if they bring back Luke Getsy.
Yeah. There is zero excuse for that.
Especially now, you have, when Ron Rivera got fired, they released that coaching staff. Who's his offensive? Eric Bieniemy.
That's right. Yeah.
What did Eric Bieniemy do when he was in Kansas City? They won Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm.
He left. Matt Nagy replaced him. They've talked about how much, not just the coaching, the system is the same, the play calling is different, but most importantly, the accountability of the offensive players is not there.
Mm-hmm.
And he moves over, and he couldn't get a head coaching job because Andy Reid does not have a good coaching tree. And people assumed, well, he is a front at the offensive coordinator position because it's Andy Reid. So he takes the opportunity on to show what he can do without Andy Reid. He goes to Washington. Are they a good team? No. But through a good chunk of this season, Sam Howell led the league in passing.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Howell. So if you have a guy that comes in here, holds players accountable, and puts a system in where the quarterback can succeed, and I don't think he's going to get a head coaching job. If you could bring him in as an offensive coordinator, all right, cool.
That'd be nice.
A real offensive coordinator who has had success in this league in a job that he has done.
And you know who else worked? You know who else worked for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Ryan Poles.
Uh-huh.
I would love to see it. He probably, if he comes here and is successful, I think then he gets the head coaching job. He's probably a one and done. So if you bring him in, you probably say, hey, we recognize that you're likely a one and done. Who is a successor to you? Who's going to come in here and keep continuity and such? And you develop that guy over the year, so you have somebody to replace him. But if they bring Luke Getsy back, and the fact that they have not fired him, that should have been today, this morning. Luke Getsy is relieved. And maybe it's because they want through the player evaluations and things first.
Doing their due diligence, yeah.
But I don't know how he comes back. I just don't.
You can't. That is, as I've said on other shows, the ultimate deal breaker. If you bring in a legitimately good offensive coordinator and you keep Matt Eberflus, still not my favorite choice, but I'd rather do that than run back the same staff again. Far and away.
With Matt Eberflus, the defense did get better. I still think that that cover 2 system sucks, but and they've gotten burned so many times. But if they bring him back, you're like, okay, well, we add another edge rusher because they geared up. Packers showed they gear up, stop Montez Sweat, and then the rest of that defensive line is nothing. is
Wow,
you've
it's
got,
almost like teams prepare. Good coaches prepare for the opponent.
yeah. And Michael Penix just missed a wide open wide receiver that would have been for a touchdown.
Oof. Oof.
Missed a guy that's going to be a top 15 draft pick, wide open.
Oof.
But I just you add another edge rusher and you can live with a Matt Eberflus. It's this whole offensive scheme needs overhaul. Need to move on from Luke. That's just plain and simple.
And let's
And
reiterate here too that living with Eberflus, even with a great coordinator, is still not our number one ideal outcome.
yeah, he's not good enough. Matt Eberflus cannot win you a Super Bowl.
No, no. I
Maybe he wins you a division. Maybe.
or a wild card berth, but he's
Yeah.
not going to outcoach Andy Reid or Matt LaFleur or Mike Tomlin.
He can't even outcoach the game clock.
Yeah. I mean, again, where are your standards? Where are your standards? And you know what? This is going to be a challenge. If you do go in another direction, coaching wise, there is a challenge here because it's not like you have the big free agent class of coaches here. And there's more and more rumblings about Jim Harbaugh's return to the NFL. Whether that comes to fruition, we'll see. But I'll tell you this. I think it's a 99.9% chance that Jim Harbaugh does not come here.
No, because he's that that would go against everything that the McCaskies are. Is he's going to
Smart.
come in here and shake things up, and he's a weird dude. He wants everything his way. It's and uh
If you don't buy into the passion George Hallis, Mike Ditka way, that's not what we're looking for. You got to win a press conference.
I just um I'm just fed up, and I'm like I think Jim Harbaugh is where he belongs at Michigan. Um, Stay there, and I know he's a competitor, and I know he uh um eventually wants to win a Super Bowl, but you can't you I don't think he's the right I think he would do good things with the Bears. He would make them competitive. I just don't think that is it's a very volatile situation.
Yeah, I mean, I could hope for it. It's most likely not happening. And, you look, because, I mean, listen, the Bears ain't the only team looking for a new coach.
Nope.
Commanders are looking for a new coach. The Panthers are looking for a new coach. The Chargers are looking for a new coach. The Falcons are looking for a new coach. Look, the Patriots are gonna, I mean, you got competition. Now, are the Bears more okay, you want to play a little game here? If you had to look at all the other teams that are looking for a coach, let's go down the list. Who's more appealing, that team or the Bears? You want to play that game?
Sure.
Okay. Let's start with one we'll easily win. Panthers.
Bears.
Okay. Falcons.
Falcons.
All they really need is a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So I would agree, slight edge to the Falcons. Commanders.
Bears.
Yeah, I'll give the Bears a slight over that one. Chargers.
I mean, you've got your quarterback in. but that's a team that was built to win this year, and they just pooped the bed. I'm gonna say Chargers, but that it's gonna shift pretty quickly to Bears if they figure out the quarterback situation.
Yeah, that's fair.
Your defense is older, and your offensive line had struggles. Your quarterback was injured. Um, so I'm going to say Chargers right now, but I think the Bears have the real possibility of flipping that as far as talent wise.
Vegas.
Bears.
Yeah, I mean, ever since they fired McDaniels, they have looked better, but
Better. I mean,
it's such a
it,
weird organization.
here's the thing. It's one of those things is people are like, oh, it's the players, not the coaches. But you know what? Coaches get paid a lot of money, and they fired a coach there. They brought in a coach, and with the same group of players, actually worse because you went from an actual quarterback to a rookie who was not like what was he, like a fourth round rookie, fifth round, Aiden O'Connell, and you're and you were playing better. So I just don't understand that this doesn't make sense to the Bears. If you take your roster that you put together as the GM, you think is a good roster, and the coaching, and you're like, oh man, they're not playing well. Did I put together a bad roster? Maybe it's bad coaching, and you put a different coaching staff in place, maybe better results.
So I haven't heard anything about Mike Vrabel yet.
Hey, can I pause you for 1 second here?
Mm-hmm.
Remember when I talked about it's not just your head coach, it's finding people either that have been good at this position they're in, so not everybody's in over their head, or finding people that are exceptional at what they do that are going to move up. And I'm going to point this out. In 2013, the then Washington Redskins, now Washington Commanders, they were their head coach was Mike Shanahan.
Mm-hmm.
Can I list you the names of assistant coaches that they had?
Go for it.
Their linebackers coach was Bob Slowick, who is the offensive coordinator for the Texans and one of the hot names to be a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Their assistant special teams coach was Richard Hightower, who's the Bears special teams coach.
Mm-hmm.
Defensive backs coach, Raheem Morris, who was NFL head coach. Those are the lower ones. Offensive coordinator, Kyle Shanahan.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterbacks coach, Matt LaFleur.
Mm-hmm.
Wide receivers coach, Mike McDaniel. Tight ends coach, Sean McVay.
Wow. Talk about a tree.
That is a coaching staff that you put together.
Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur.
And Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan. Like the four best coaches in the NFL.
Yeah.
Are all assistant coaches.
That's nuts. And hashtag the Bears would never.
No. And just on their defensive coaches, you're like, oh, that's a pretty darn good roster there too.
Yeah. Then you get to your offense, and you're like, holy shit. The Bears haven't had that collection of coaches in their 100+ years of existence.
No. So it's just frustrating.
Can we also
just pay somebody and get a legit person in here, and not just somebody, oh, well, they're good at their job. Find somebody that they have that fire. Watch watch Matt LaFleur on the sidelines. He's not some wallflower. He's throwing things, he's yelling and he's screaming. And get somebody with that passion, that they've got that fire, they've got that passion. They know the X's and O's. Like, I get passing on Mike McDaniel because he's weird. Mike McDaniel's weird. So I get passing on him, but the Sean McVays and Matt LaFleur's and the Kyle Shanahan's, you can't pass on guys like those. They show up. They show up when you interview them.
We have Mike Tomlin.
I would love Mike Tomlin. Is
when a bad season for Mike Tomlin is like 8 wins. That's a bad season for him. This year,
losing season.
Yeah. They won 10 games this year, and people in Pittsburgh want him gone. And you had millions of things go weird or bad for the Steelers, and they still won 10 games.
With Mitch Trubisky as their quarterback.
And Mason Rudolph, and my goodness. They still won 10 games. It's incredible. I mean, it's you can put every Bears coach together and you wouldn't equal that.
Is if you got him, that would be a coup. That would just be you would have won the offseason. Because he's going to come in here, and he's not just going to come in here. He's going to come in here with coaches that know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Another tangent. Have you ever seen Jim and John Harbaugh's dad?
Yes.
He looks like if you put Jim Harbaugh in one of those aging apps on your phone.
I know.
It's so weird. He looks just like him.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm just fed up. I mean, you watch this game, and like, what can you say? The Bears had a tough time tackling. I knew what was going to happen. They were going to start the game and with some passes, open it up, and then they're just going to, the second half, they're going to pound the ball on, and the Bears aren't going to be able to stop it. I knew exactly what was going to happen. And
yeah. Oh yeah.
And it happened. And I just knew. And the fact that the coaching staff couldn't see this.
Same as it ever was. I mean, it was like the same movie. How many times have we seen the Bears get off to a pretty solid start at Green Bay? They score first, they get a stop or two early on. You're thinking, oh boy, here we go. And then the Bears have an opportunity to extend the lead. They don't, and then all hell breaks loose. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it's just tiresome. It's just tiresome.
Tiresome.
And
having to hear it from the fans up north every year, and the "we own you" stuff, and the jokes and the ridicule, it never ends. It never ends. And here's the thing. They have the right to talk shit because they do own us. And when you hear Bear players like, listen, I'm a big Jaquan Brisker fan, but his post-game comments like, dude, really? Come on.
The Bears should have won that game. Regardless of how much they were outplayed, there were opportunities for them. You don't have to be the better team. You just have to have more points at the end of the game.
But of course they can't. Of course they can't overcome that.
You there?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just tiresome. And I really hope tomorrow, which will be Tuesday, whenever you listen to this, I hope the Bears announce that they are parting ways with their coaching staff. And the fact that they haven't yet has me worried that they're not going to do that.
I'm worried too. I'm not saying it's 100% going to go one way or the other, but I'm worried too.
And, I recognize it's a long season and you can't base it off of one game, but all of the things that you sold me on where you're growing and you're building over the last 8 weeks or so of the Bears organization, it got negated when you played like that against the Green Bay Packers. It's just a fact.
Yep.
So the Bears now officially are on the clock. They have the number 1 pick, and their order for them has said they will pick 9th. So they'll have the number 9 pick. So 2 picks in the top 10. And that should be good for them because last year when they traded out of number 1, they traded to 9. Ironic, 1-9 last year, 1-9 this year. But if you trade further back for even more compensation, you still have a top 10 pick to fall back on.
I mean, you're in great draft position. You're as good as you can get. The possibilities are endless. It's just how are you going to do it?
Yeah. Yep. And now is I think the draft order bodes well for you to be able to get a haul. I know there's several quarterbacks in there, but there's going to be at least one team that falls in love with a guy, and they're going to be so afraid that the Washington Commanders and the New England Patriots are going to take them and leapfrog them, and you're going to panic and go, oh man, I'm going to lose the guy I'm desperate for. And you're going to want to leapfrog them. So even though there are more quarterbacks that are good, you're going to have teams that are going to throw. It happened with the year Justin Fields was drafted. There was several quarterbacks that were first round guys, and somebody fell in love with Trey Lance. They traded 3 first rounds to get Trey Lance. There's going to be somebody that falls in love with a guy, and they're like, I can't draft after Washington and New England because they're both picking quarterbacks. I'm not going to fall for the 4th quarterback in the 4th, pick of the litter of quarterbacks. I want my guy. And you're not going to be able to trade with New England. You're not going to be able to trade with Washington because they both want quarterbacks. It's the Bears, because if you trade at number 4 with Arizona, what's the difference at 4th and 8th and 10th? Because you're not going to get your guy. So the fact that if Arizona would have got that 2nd pick, is teams could have played leverage them against each other. Like, well, I can go to 2 and get a dude. So you're going to have to go to the Bears, and I think you're going to get a major haul. And you have to ask yourself, and I know some dumb announcer was like, well, you pick your quarterback and then you just got to hit on one guy. But if you get 4 picks, 5 picks, you've got to hit on all. No, you don't. You don't have to hit on all of them. Is you hit. Look what the Bears did last year. They could have had one swing at the number 1 pick, and if they got to hit 100% on that one. Now they have 2 first rounders, 2 second rounders, and DJ Moore. DJ Moore has already hit. He's a hit. It's a hit.
Yep.
You got Darnell Wright. He looks like a hit. So yeah, okay. We're 2 for 2. And I think actually who did their second rounder last year, Tyreek Stevenson, hit 3 for 3. And then now this other first rounder is the number 1 pick. So it's boding well for you. You don't need them all, but boy, it makes the odds a lot easier to get quality players.
Absolutely.
So Yeah. So now they're on the clock, and I do hope Ryan Poles evaluates all the quarterbacks because
Oh yeah, yeah. You got to do your due diligence here. You absolutely have to.
if he truly, really and truly sees somebody and goes, man, I think I think that dude is a guy. I put in all my chips in, think he's the guy. Okay, then that's what you're gonna do. But it's you've got it seems to me you've got three options if you're the Bears. One, you trade back and you get that haul, and you build around Justin Fields. Two is you draft that guy, trade Justin Fields. And three is you uh you trade that number one pick and you get a haul, and then you use that number 9 pick to get a quarterback. So those seems to be the three options. Because there's no saying that, oh, at that 9 pick you're not going to get the dude, because wasn't that where Pat Mahomes was drafted? Is he ninth?
It's either ninth or 11th. I've taken that memory out of my mind for
Yeah.
my
So
for my sanity.
I want to say that's around when Josh Allen was picked. I want to say that's even a little earlier than when Ben Roethlisberger was drafted.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's nothing to say you can't get that haul and your quarterback. So I'm those seem like the three possibilities. I want the due diligence done. Part of that is you got to figure out what you can get for Justin Fields too. If you decide and this might not even be decided until day of, because if you're like, what, I really like this guy, I think we can get him later, and he's not there, your plan B is you keep Justin Fields and you build around him. But if that dude's available and at 9, and then you and you have to kind of know what you can get for Justin Fields. I still think you can get a first rounder for him, a future first.
You think so?
I think so.
Hmm.
Sam Brad,
Do you think Atlanta would want to make that move?
I think it depends on who they bring in as a coach, but there is a future first rounder versus trading multiple first round picks to move up to get a guy now. What are they drafting? Atlanta 15th. Let's see. NFL draft order. All right. So Atlanta is picking 8th. So they're picking 8th. So are you going to trade multiple first round picks to move up to get your dude? Wait and see who's left for the pickings, or go with a fairly known commodity where where you can keep your first rounder this year and go with and trade next year's first rounder when it's probably going to be somewhere in the mid to upper 20s.
I mean, would it seem like, because I feel like fit wise, Atlanta would make a ton of sense, and I've said this for a while now, but I mean, what other teams do you think would be a possibility? I mean, I don't see teams that are drafting high going with that, because they're probably going to draft somebody. But I mean, you're thinking of teams that aren't necessarily going to be drafting super high and need a quarterback. I think the Falcons are one of those teams. I don't think that you're going to see.
Washington's probably out.
They're going to draft a quarterback.
Yeah, they're probably, unless whoever's there is like, you know what, let's draft a weapon and then trade our next year's number 1 for Justin Fields. And but I would assume that they're going to draft a dude. New England's probably going to draft a dude. Arizona's going to stay with their dude. Um, Chargers got their dude. I think the Giants.
You got so much wrapped up in Danny Dimes, even though I don't think he's the answer.
No, he's not. Um, but I don't know. I think the Giants probably out. Maybe Tennessee. Are they sold on Will Levis?
I don't know. That's my big question. I really don't know.
Um, maybe Atlanta. The Jets, no, because they're married to that geriatric doucher. Minnesota.
That tax would be pretty high.
They have to be. But
Th-
they don't. Who's their quarterback next year?
I think they're going to try to resign Kirk Cousins.
I think they will, but um, you know, what's he going to look like? He's injured. He's 30, going to be 37 years old.
Is he that old?
I think so.
I thought he was like lower 30s.
Kirk Cousin.
Unless I'm wrong, I thought he was like
When
33-ish.
he'll be 36 when the season starts.
Wow. Okay. So he's a few years older than I thought. Well, he has been around a while.
I mean, he was drafted at the same year, the same team as RG3. So,
Yeah, that's right.
so Minnesota's a possibility they can wanting him. Maybe Denver.
But all that they have tied in Russell Wilson.
Well, he's gone. They're moving on from him.
Ah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, he's done. Vegas.
Maybe.
New Orleans paid Carr, so I think they're going to keep him. Indianapolis drafted a guy. Wild dark horse, Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, they're
Their quarterback
Geno Smith is
Geno Smith was hurt a lot, and they don't have. It's not like they're tied up that much with him.
no, it's just do they want to give up a lot of capital?
Jacksonville, no. Cincinnati, no. Green Bay, no. Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay, it's interesting because I don't think Baker Mayfield's necessarily a long-term solution there.
No, I don't think so either.
Wait, how are the Broncos? I know there's the drama with the Broncos and Russell Wilson in the sitting out, but
They sat him out because he's got a huge roster bonus due.
yeah,
And
that's right.
If he gets injured, it's guaranteed. But otherwise, if he's not injured, they can cut him and not have to, before that, not have to pay it. So the plan is they're planning to cut him unless he takes a big pay cut, or probably still cut him anyway. But they didn't want him to risk getting him hurt and having to be guaranteed paying that money. So they
Right.
sat.
Because I know they sat him and he was pretty pissed and it was a whole thing. And I knew it had something to do with money. I honestly didn't read that much into it. So, um, hmm. Well, do they have what does their capital look like? I mean, I'm sure they can make something work. It's just, what are they going to be able to swing here?
Let's look it over the cap.
Imagine if he somehow just went back to Seattle.
Let's see. Calculator. Russell Wilson. Let's say that they're going to designate him as a post June 1st. Whew. Man, they'll be 18 over the cap.
So, I mean, you would get Justin Fields for like a year and then you would have to pay him, right?
Well, then they're for 2025, then they would have $111 million.
So you were just talking 2024.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you would have to turn some people into roster bonuses, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
That's a possibility. I mean, I don't know what Denver's going to do because they're Sean Payton's going to want a guy,
Yeah,
and
and you're drafting 12th.
so I don't know. We shall see.
With Minnesota, if you were to trade them Justin Fields, wouldn't that require just an absolute haul being in the same division?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
would there would be a tax added to that, and I don't know. My money is them on re-signing Kirk Cousins. That's just me. I think
Probably.
Seattle could be a sneaky, interesting one, though.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine what he would do?
DK Metcalf and
Well, with Pete Carroll.
yeah, well, yes. Yeah. He would know exactly how to utilize him
Yep.
because Pete Carroll is no dummy.
Except when it's the last play of the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, that whole thing. Still can't believe that happened.
I know. Like beast mode, there was no stopping him, and uh, you just like, oh well, they can't stop. Nothing they can do, and let's just try to be slick about it. No, just hand it to the dude who's running over everybody.
Oh, well, they were expecting that. They weren't expecting this pass. Well, clearly they were. They read it like a book. You know, that was almost 10 years ago.
Jeez.
Not quite, but we're getting there. So that was the 2014 season. Next year is the 2024 season. So that means a year from like a month from now. So in 13 months, it'll be 10 years since that. I was watching in my college dorm room with my buddies. We ordered pizza and we tipped the delivery driver really, really well because I don't know if you remember that Super Bowl here in Chicago. It was a blizzard and very, very cold,
Yep, I remember.
just like it's going to be this week.
Yep.
Get ready. Hallis Hall will be covered in snow and ice, but will bear weather prevail? Will bear weather make them make a good decision, or will bear weather make them even bigger meatballs? That's the question.
So hopefully when you guys listen to this, they've made coaching changes, but I'm not that hopeful. I, it's hard to gauge by looking at Kevin Warren's face, but he always looks angry.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's just how he looks or that's he's really just I'm sure though that we might hear at some point that the old lady was pissed off. By the way, happy 101st birthday. Yeah, well, mom was pissed off. I'm Ding Dong George and as I'm telling you this, I'm doodling a monkey on my yellow notepad with my purple crayon. Ugh. Just
Such a ding dong, man.
Ding Dong George. Let's just hope there's no Ding Dong Kevin. Don't don't infect him. Did you see the those signs that were outside of Hallis Hall?
Yes, the all the Justin Fields support signs. Because Ryan Poles said that he deleted Twitter. Um,
Yes, he did.
so which means he had Twitter, which
So
makes
what's
me
his
go,
burner?
I know, we got to figure out what his burner account is. And oh my God, can you imagine if somebody figured out what his burner account was? But so he deleted it. It means he had it. So he means he's not listening to what fans have to say. And you know, he's got to hear it. What other way is he going to hear it? Just make his drive into work noticeable.
His burner is one of those ridiculous names from the Key and Peele East versus West Bowl skit.
uh, uh,
DeAndre D. Billings Clyde. That's gonna be Ryan Poles' burner.
what if it was something like not Ryan Poles? Uh,
It's still nothing will beat Jed Hoyer spanking it.
what was his burner?
It's Jed Hoyer, and he
Really?
tweeted spanking it like over 10 years ago. Have you never seen that?
No, I've never seen that.
What?
Oh,
Wait. Hold on. I gotta find this right now. This is like the iconic Cubs tweet of all time.
I mean, this isn't as good as Mitch Trubisky. I love titties.
It's rivaling it.
All right, I googled Jed Hoyer. Was that really his burner account?
I think it was.
Jed Hoyer spanking it.
We'll never know for sure, but the rumor is that Jed Hoyer had that burner and like Theo had it and tweeted that for whatever reason.
He has 3 tweets. The first one is spanking it, and then 7 years later, anyone have a hand towel? And then 4 years later, finally, I'm a star. I'm a star. I'm a star. I'm a star. I'm a big, bright, shining star. And a clip from Boogie Nights. If that's really him, that would be amazing.
I know. Man, you never seen that?
No.
What was the date of the spanking it tweet? Because it was a while ago.
April 14th, 2009.
Yeah, long time ago.
Wow. That would be amazing. I don't think it is, but
Don't ruin the legend, man.
I'm going to go on to Chat GPT and be like, what is Ryan Poles' burner account? Yeah, there's several threads of people trying to figure out what his burner accounts is.
I mean, if he shut it down, does that mean he deleted it or did he just...
I don't know.
I would love to know.
I am on Reddit and somebody commented, what the fuck? Are you telling me he isn't making decisions based off of Reddit or Twitter? Fuck me. Oh man. Wild. But yeah, I mean, hopefully this is an eventful week for the Bears. Hopefully they do something. I can't sit here with the inaction.
We've had enough of that. Though I don't think it's really an action. It's negotiating, if you know what I mean.
I don't know what, like, how you're Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren and watched what transpired and walk in there and be like, yeah, Luke Getsy's our dude, regardless of Matt Eberflus. How do you walk in there and be like, yeah, Luke Getsy is our dude. We stand by that dude. And not firing him is standing by him. There's no, well, it's either he's your dude and you're standing by him, or he's not your dude and you move on. This is a black and white issue.
Right. Wee woo, wee woo, wee woo. Those sirens better be blaring.
All right. What should we move on to?
what makes things even worse in Chicago? Something
Uh,
I alluded to earlier.
Connor
Connor
Bedard Shaw.
Bedard. Ugh.
Um, I, at first, like, dirty hit. I went back and watched. I don't think it was. It was a hard hit, but I don't know if it was a dirty hit.
Yeah, I mean, was it a little high? Sure, but we've seen much, much worse. Much, much worse.
Yeah, and I appreciate no matter what his team having his back. Um, but you, um, it's you got to have his back, and the way they did it just showed me that even through this dog turd season, they're still playing as a team.
Yeah, I mean, they have no talent left on the roster because you have 9 guys on IR, but like you said, they're still trying to play as a team, even if they get killed at times. It's not always for a lack of effort. It's just you have an AHL roster out there, and hey, they had a nice win against the Flames somehow without you had this island of misfit toys go out and beat the Flames the other day. Good for them.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, is I'm gonna preface this by saying silver lining. Like, nobody wants the situation where they're in, where they have 9 guys on IR. Like, that is just, I mean, it's laughable at this point. Um, is the silver lining in all of this is that somebody's got to step up, and you're going to have players that there's like, well, there's nobody. Somebody's got to step up and play, and so far, it's been Blackwell playing like with his hair's on fire. He had a really good game against Calgary.
Yeah, he did.
Maybe this is what Lucas Reichel needs. Hey, I gotta be the dude.
Still waiting for him to break out.
So that's that. Maybe that's the kick in the pants that they all need. That everybody's hurt. There's no talent in this team. There's zero expectations. We're just going out there and doing whatever we can. Maybe that's the fire that's the spark. I don't know. That's the one silver lining that you can hope for.
Right. I mean, it's going to be pretty rough. I mean, you look at where the roster is and you're like, yeesh. I mean, I read somewhere that they had more cap space on IR than actually on the ice.
That not surprising.
Oof. Oof. I mean, listen, you look at the whole roster as it is. Connor Bedard's on IR, Seth Jones, Andres Athanasiou, Taylor Hall, he's done for the year. Uh, those are the ones I can think off the top of my head. Who else? There's more. I gotta look it up because I'm losing track who's on IR these days. Um, is Joey Anderson on IR? I I didn't see much of the game the other day. I just saw the end when the Blackhawks won, but let's see. Blackhawks IR.
I
Let's get
think,
this full list.
yeah, he's on IR.
Yeah, I that's what I thought. So, what? That's 5. Tyler Johnson's on IR. Taylor Radish. Bavelier.
Lino.
Foligno. Yeah, that's right. He had a fractured finger. I forgot about that.
Yep, he did it. He got it in the fight defending
Oh,
Bedard.
jeez. So yeah, I mean, here you go. Hall, Bedard, Athanasiou, Bevelier, Tyler Johnson, Taylor Radish, Nick Foligno, Joey Anderson, and then Seth Jones. Jeez.
And Corey Perry was gone for other reasons.
Yes, yeah, that's not IR. That's
Well,
other
I mean,
reasons.
still, you got to put that. You got to figure that in there a little bit. Like that's a guy that you started the season hoping would do something, and whew, so you've got just so many players. Just
And
not there.
and I mean, think about it. Like, I had to look up who was all on IR because I couldn't keep track.
Yeah, it's like it was a quote. It was just like it's laughable at this point.
Right. Like it's obvious, Bedard's on IR. He's the face of your franchise. Taylor Hall's been out for a long time. He's going to be out the rest of the season. Athanasiou, didn't he go out like the first few weeks of the season?
He's been. I forgot he was even on the team. It's been out so
Yeah.
long.
And then Seth Jones hasn't been around a while. I totally forgot Nick Foligno was on IR. Taylor Radish, that one I kind of like, oh yeah, he's on there too. I somehow remember Joey Anderson. But geez, man. I mean, you're not winning anything this year, but it's like, wow.
No, and what's wild is how bad you've been playing. How many players are injured? You're still not as bad as San Jose.
Yeah,
How bad is San Jose?
really bad. Really bad.
I mean, you're 5 points better than them.
You're praying that you get Celebrini if you're the Sharks.
Oh my God, how mad would the league be if the Blackhawks got the number one pick again?
Oh, there would be riots in the streets.
I literally am on Tankathon, press sim lottery one time. Blackhawks 1, Columbus 2, San Jose 3.
Oh no. Yeah. Awesome.
Oh my God. Like every fan would just like outside of Chicago would just be losing their mind. Hey, to loop back quick on the Bears, I saw something from Brad Biggs, and he is quoted as saying, "I believe if Matt Eberflus makes it to a third season with the Bears, he would do so with 2 new coordinators. My hunch is Eberflus would call defensive plays next season if he's back, and the offense really struggled at times this season, and I doubt the blame is placed on the quarterback Justin Fields. Offensive coordinator Luke Getsy could be in a difficult spot. So a question the Bears will have for Eberflus is what kind of vision does he have for his staff in 2024? Does it impress them?"
Hmm.
So Brad Biggs doesn't seem like he thinks Luke Getsy's going to be back. Hopefully that's true. He has this finger on the pulse much more than I do. And maybe that's part of their decision process. They met with Eberflus and said, "Hey," because usually ownership and GMs don't fire assistant coaches. It's usually your head coach, but you go to him because if you go to Eberflus and you're like, "Yeah, we can't have this coaching staff. What are you going to do?" And if he's like, "I'm sticking with my dude," well, then okay, well then we're going to fire you, and everybody's gone. Or maybe they're sitting down with him and like before they fire Getsy, like, "Hey, what are we thinking?" So maybe that's part of the delay.
Could be.
Ugh.
And you know what? I'm gonna say this is if you put a gun to my head and said, tell me what's gonna happen, and you better be right, I would say that at the very least, I feel good about Luke Getsy being gone. I just don't know about Matt Eberflus. I would actually be somewhat shocked if they did keep Luke Getsy. Wouldn't be shocked if they kept Eberflus, but Luke Getsy, I feel like that would be for for what Ryan Poles seems to be, for what his standards seem to be, and what I hope Kevin Warren's standards seem to be, I really hope that's at least enough to say, you know what, we're going to get rid of Luke Getsy and George McCaskey doesn't have to eat the salary of a head coach, but just a coordinator. That's my hope.
George McReinsdorf.
Yeah. I mean, why do you think he kept Ted Phillips around so long? Because Ted Phillips could help advise within the parameters of what the McCaskies wanted to spend. Because Ted Phillips was their bean counter. Doesn't it all make sense?
It does. It does. I mean, when you think about it, the only income the McCaskies have is owning the Bears.
Right.
Like other teams have, David Tepper, owner of Carolina. He's a billionaire hedge fund manager.
It's also a piece of crap.
Oh yeah, he's a total piece of crap. But Jerry Jones, rich. Guy who just bought Washington, rich. Like all these owners are just filthy rich that bought a team with their filthy rich money. The McCaskies, that's all the money they have. And not crying poor on them, but but they're not billionaires. They're billionaires in the sense of if they sold the team, they'd be billionaires, but they don't have billions of dollars disposable income.
I mean, you can go beyond just the NFL and look in this city. Where did the Ricketts get their fortune? TD Ameritrade. Look at the Wirtz Company. They own how many businesses? They have the alcohol line. They have, with banks and investment and all this stuff.
They own commercial real estate, and
Mm-hmm.
they own apartment complexes. They own the alcohol distributor. Like they've got their hands in a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
Reinsdorf he was a rich dude, was a lawyer, and he bought the White Sox and the Bulls for next to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And he is making fat cash off of both.
And yet he still acts like Jerry Reinsdorf.
Yeah. So that dude is filthy rich. And if he sold his franchises, he would have billions of dollars.
Yep.
So yeah, the Bears, they just don't have that. So yeah, that makes sense. Is they want to be, I'm not going to say cheap, but they sort of want to be a little frugal.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, replacing an offensive coordinator is a whole lot cheaper than replacing a whole coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're about to start spending all of your cap money.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk a little baseball?
Sure.
Really not much to talk about.
No, but you know what? I'm going to say something optimistic. I think a bomb is going to go off in a good way for the Cubs coming up. I think there's going to be a dam breaking. I say this and wield it into existence.
Well, it's not going to be Franmil Reyes because he's about to sign overseas.
Oh no.
I think he's going to the Korean League.
Darn. Because I was totally looking at him on my radar. But did you see the report from earlier today?
I did not.
Let me pull it up. So Jim Bowden reported they're, as in the Cubs, involved and have made significant offers to Montgomery, Bellinger, Chapman, and Hoskins.
Wow.
Keep in mind that a lot of these guys I just listed, who is their agent?
Boris.
Right. So what does this mean? This is going to take time. And that's why it has taken time. And I'm just hoping that we're getting to that point where one of those dams breaks and something happens.
I hope so. I really hope so, because it's uh, the Cubs are one of the very few, if not only, team that has not signed a major league player.
Yeah, it's uh it's literally like them and the Marlins or something like that, or the Rockies maybe, or maybe the Rockies might have recently signed some. I don't know, but like the Cubs are one of few teams. I don't like keeping track of that stuff necessarily. I mean, it's clear who the number one spender is. Who the Dodgers just got Teoscar Hernandez,
Yeah, that how?
and they somehow. I mean, I know it's illegal, but they deferred money on that, and it's a 1 year deal. Just come on. And they still might not be done. They might make another massive trade.
I mean, I still think Dylan Cease is legit trade candidate
I think so too.
because he would fit into their budget, and
Budget? What budget? There's no limit for them.
they wouldn't have to pay him. At least he makes next to nothing. He would be making less than Shohei Ohtani.
Well, we did this stupid little negotiating thing, and now we're deferring all his salary to 2058.
Uh, God.
But man, though, if you somehow got 3 of 4 of those names, like if you got Bellinger, Chapman, and Montgomery, or Montgomery, Bellinger, and Hoskins, those are 3 significant gets. And I know I'm not as bullish on Matt Chapman, um, but he's a great defender. He could still hit for some pop. And if he does that for you, you take that as a plus. Again, I'm not advocating for them giving him a big contract, but if you somehow scored him on something reasonable, I wouldn't protest. Let's just say that. But we'll see. I mean, I really want Bellinger, and I'd love to have Jordan Montgomery on this team. You need a big name pitcher. You can't roll into 2024 with a rotation of Steele and Wicks and Hendricks and Tyone and Javier Assad. You need 1 or 2 guys in there.
What if Tyone comes in and pulls uh a turnaround and becomes the pitcher that we thought he was going to be?
I mean, if he does that, great, but you're still looking at a 3-4 starter.
I'm also not excited about Matt Chapman.
I'm not lobbying for him to be their big move, but
If you have Hoskins at first and Belly, does Belly play center then? And then you kick the can down the road with
PCA.
PCA.
Well, you can do that, or if you do have PCA, you play Bellinger at first to DH Hoskins because you remember he is coming off an injury.
But then where do you play what's his face that you're going to be playing to DH?
Morel?
Yeah, Christopher Morel.
Might have to play him at third. Try to get. I know it's not ideal, but
if you have Chapman and Hoskins,
then you trade Morel for Shane Beer. I don't know.
He's becoming the man with no home, and that's the part of the problem with having a guy that can play multiple positions reasonably well makes it a whole lot easier to plan things. Like the fact that you can put Bellinger at any 3 outfield spots, first base or DH, makes it a whole lot easier to be like, all right, well, we can fit him in our plans because if we PCA comes up, we move him to first base or DH. And if we sign Hoskins, then we can move him to DH and then have him fill in in the outfield or first base. But Morel is not a good enough fielder to be like, oh yeah, we can plug and play him anywhere.
And that's the frustrating thing is you want your hot corner to be at least a respectable defender.
Yes. I mean, you would love to have a good defender with a pop in his bat, but you know, if they did, if their infield is Chapman and Horner and Swanson and Bellinger at first, that's a pretty darn good fielding infield.
Yeah. I mean, up the middle, you know you're going to get elite defense. And Bellinger at first will give you steady. You know he won't be a platinum glover like Anthony Rizzo, but he'll do the job as needed.
Yeah. I mean, he's not the same defender as he is in center field, but he's I would say above average.
Mm-hmm. And
I mean,
listen, maybe you look at this year and say, hey, Pete Crow Armstrong might be something down the road. I mean, I'm sure he'll get big league time again in 2024 as long as he's healthy, but I feel like it would be best to get him a bit more seasoning in the minors first, and then you go from there.
it's yeah, I mean, is what would be hilarious if CubsCon comes and goes and the Cubs haven't really signed anybody, but Bellinger just showed up with a fake mustache, asking them, what about Bellinger? Have you thought about re-signing him?
Oh yeah, hi. My name is Moldy Bellcox, and I have a question for Mr. Hoyer. That guy looks awfully familiar, but the mustache has me baffled.
He's also wearing a top hat and a monocle.
The monocle has no lens.
Keeps dropping the monocle. It smashes. I must simply stop being so astonished.
Oh, I am so sorry. I had so much brandy today.
But the White Sox, on the other hand, man, I get angry texts every morning at like 6 a.m. from Gary.
Oh, what's he saying?
He hates Jerry Reinsdorf.
Which that's fair. I'm
is
not
fair.
going to say he's wrong.
Yeah. So these are some things that he's been fighting with people on the internet about. I'll just read it straight because I think you aren't listening to what people mean when they say he doesn't spend, meaning Reinsdorf. I'll try to break it down. Let's take $50 million. Do you pay 5 players $10 million 1-year contracts who have an average of 1 WAR, or do you pay 1 player $40 million a year for 10 years who averages 6 WAR for the first 5 years and 2 or 3 for the next 5, and fill the other 4 spots with players making anywhere from 600 to 8 million, eating up the remaining of the $10 million? Let's say those 4 only average a 1 WAR. Which one is helping the team more? Same amount of money, different type of spending. When people say Jerry doesn't spend, they say it because he doesn't risk long-term investments. Unfortunately, no superstar will come to a team with a 1 or 2 year deal. That's not where baseball is today. Jerry puts his business first, willing to risk spending 1 year to save the next 3 if things don't work out. That's why you have 3 rebuilds in the last 10 years. Not sure you're expecting this pattern to change. People who are negative about Jerry have seen the same pattern for 42 years, several GMs and many players. Also, in the last 10 years, the White Sox have spent $50 million more than the Twins. When you boast about how much more they spend, that equals about $5 million more a year, and obviously in the wrong areas. Not to mention the White Sox and Twins attendance numbers are also very similar. However, White Sox tickets are way higher in price, and their food and drink costs way more. And Reinsdorf saves $10 to $15 million a year on stadium usage costs if the attendance is less than $1.9 million. And then he also said, when somebody said that about spending, he said, I'm going to give you a concrete example. December 2019, both Zach Wheeler and Dallas Keuchel are free agents. Keuchel 31, Wheeler 29, both coming off similar seasons before free agency, but Wheeler has a ton more upside and is demanding more money. Keuchel has thrown a lot of innings and his velocity is dropping. Keuchel signs with the White Sox for 3 years, $55 million. Wheeler signs for 5 years, $118. Keuchel at $18 million, Wheeler at 23.6. Those salary numbers don't look too off, correct? So why didn't the White Sox go for the younger, more upside Wheeler? Well, 2 reasons. The White Sox have not committed to a 5 years on a contract for a pitcher since John Banks.
So that worked out.
And they are still assuming that was a huge mistake. The White Sox don't give out huge commitment money contracts. Now look at both starting pitchers produced since 2019. Wheeler has a 19.2 WAR, Keuchel 2.3. Would it have been worth giving the longer term, more committed money contract? This is an example of why people say the White Sox don't spend. He's not wrong.
No, it's well put together. And I'm sorry, I missed it. Who put that together?
My friend Gary.
Oh, Gary put that together. Wow, I think he said it eloquently. Very good. Good job, Gary.
The White Sox are so frustrating. He's got a point. They're always going to think of the bottom line first. And they did so when they fired their GM and president of baseball operations. And I'm guessing that they got a little lippy. It didn't follow the plan, because there's no way they would have fired those 2 guys for just not being good.
Mm-hmm.
You bring in a guy without interviewing anybody else. He's a yes man. He's an absolute yes man that was not good enough to be hired at that position anywhere else. So he's going to go, well, I'm not going to get another general manager job. I'm going to stay in this job as long as I can. So what Jerry tells me, that's what I'm going to do. And that's what he is doing. Look at these signings they're making. Short-term, low money. Short-term, low money. You're not getting stuck with anybody.
Putting warm bodies on a roster.
Tim Anderson had a team option, and we all assumed that they were going to pick it up, even if they weren't planning to keep him long term. You're like, okay, well, you could probably flip him when he starts to rebound. You flip him, and you're only eating some of that contract, and you're going to bring back. No, they were not willing to pick up that contract.
Nope.
They had an abuser on their team, and they were like, well, we already paid him some money, so he's pitching for us. They didn't care about the backlash. They didn't care about anything. It just came down to the fact that they didn't want to spend that money.
Yep.
And
don't you love this city?
It's frustrating. It's really frustrating. And the Cubs have the opportunity, I think, and the willingness to do something different. Nothing to the tune of what the Yankees have historically done or what the Dodgers are currently doing, but to the tune of that next tier down, the Red Sox, the Giants. And so I think they're willing to spend, and we'll see if they do, because there's still quite a few of the top 20 free agents, quite a few of them still remaining. Mm-hmm. And some of them are going to be guys that fit what you want to do. So you go into this and you're like, okay, I still feel good because the Cubs at least made a huge splash with their managerial hire. They threw all the money at him. Nobody saw it coming, and boom, there it was. And you don't spend that kind of money on Craig Counsell and and burn that bridge with your current your the manager you had in place for no reason. Is you're going to try to win, and so there's precedent there of what they're going to try to do, and the White Sox just don't have that. They hired a cheap manager, a cheap GM, and cheap contracts, and they're going to be like, well, we're spending millions of dollars. These guys should just win, and that's not what's happening, because it's not money being spent in earnest.
Nope.
And it segues into the Bulls. Is I'm going to stop ragging so much on Zach LaVine, because they're like, well, we paid a guy. Why aren't they winning? It's um, they've they've got to put a whole roster in place and spend what the good teams are spending. They're just not doing that. Like, the teams that aren't spending to the super high level of the elite teams either have somebody that's on a rookie deal that they're paying less, or uh, they've got some overachievers, and uh, the Bulls, sure, they're spending a lot of money, but they're not spending the amount of money that other teams are spending. And Zach LaVine, you put him on an island, and you're like, okay, win us basketball games, and they've put him in an awkward situation where they don't have another superstar. I mean, they've got an aging superstar, but they don't have another superstar, like an active current prime superstar. You've got a decent center that you're paying a lot of money to, and you've got an aging superstar, and then you've got a young guy that's a hell of a scorer, and you got to spend some money, got to go into that luxury tax to pay. And the fact is that, even if you go into this luxury tax, who cares? Do you know how much money the Bulls make? You know how profitable that team is?
Yeah, but does Jerry care?
No.
Nope. He does not.
The revenue of the Chicago Bulls franchise in the 2021-22 season was $372 million.
Wow. You're one of the biggest brands in sports still, thanks to Jordan.
Yeah.
And here we are, Chicago sports fans, paying premium prices for this shit.
Yep.
It's unreal.
The yeah, so you're making money. You're making a lot of money, and you're not reinvesting it into your product on the court.
No. It's just gross. We're all sick of it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing we can do, and it feels helpless because the Bulls are either going to play decently down the stretch and maybe play for a play-in tournament, or finishes like the 11th seed or the 12th seed.
And you've played a couple games since Zach has returned, and he's come off the bench, working his way back in, and they've won their last two games. Tonight they won in overtime. But okay, maybe they're able to continue winning even with Zach LaVine. Maybe this turnabout that they had when he got hurt wasn't so much about him, but the style of what they're trying to do, and they're able to ease him back into what they're doing. But they're playing much better basketball. And the thing is like they they were underperforming. The talent on this team is not bare. It's just not. It's not enough to be contenders for the uh, the NBA title. But it should be plenty to get you in the playoffs and at least be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't playing that way. And you look and you're like, okay, well they're right in there in that playoff tournament range, but they still should be playing better based on the talent that they have on this team. I don't shit on this team because they're talentless. I shit on this team because they're not playing to their potential. The coaching staff has issues, and the ownership won't pony up money. So right now, they're tied for 9th with the Nets, and they're several games behind the Heat at the 8th seed. So
It's just that purgatory range.
yeah, I mean, really, they should be better. They should be right there, the 6, 7 seed range.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it's once you move above the Bulls/Nets, the Heat have 20 wins, Pacers have 20 wins, Knicks have 21, Cavs 21, Magic 21, Sixers 23. So there's 3 games separating seeds 3 through 8.
Yep. Yeesh.
It's you gotta string together a few wins here and there. And I'm not saying you got to go on some like 10-game winning streak, but you got to start going on 3-4 game winning streaks, then lose one, and then come back and go on a win 2 or 3, and then maybe lose one. You've got to start winning at a 2 out of 3 clip to catch back up here.
Yeah. You're taking advantage of a banged up bad Charlotte team, but
I mean, it doesn't matter because those teams are on your schedule. Doesn't matter
right.
if they're banged up, doesn't matter if they're bad. You've got to win. And that's just the fact of it. You've got to win these games that are on your schedule. It goes the same with every team. Is you don't make your schedule. So, what are you going to do to take advantage? And you got the Rockets, then you got Golden State, and then the next game is
that game against Golden State. Is that at home or in California?
That is at the United Center.
Okay.
And then you go to San Antonio. You got to win. You've got to win that game at San Antonio. You have to. That team's a bad team.
Yep. Yeah. Even with Wemby, the team itself is not good.
Wemby is very good, but that team is not very good.
No. You beat him once already, but you got to beat him again.
Yeah. So you've got to look at those. The Rockets are on par with you. They're a few games better than you, but that's a game you're like, that's a statement game. You got.
Is that in Houston or is that at the United Center?
That one is at the United Center.
Okay. So you got home court.
Yeah. And then Cleveland, which will be a tough one. Toronto, a tough one. So you've got to be able to pull some of these wins here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, John Morant will undergo season-ending shoulder surgery.
Oof.
Tough.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Nope, I think I've said my piece.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media. at Swerski Sports, facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, fire Luke Getzey and bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.